What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Jenks Island podcast, the only podcast where you can get your takes from a washed-up Division III cornerback. I'm your host, Grayson Jenkins, and as you can see, Ty McGee and Hammer are not with me today. There was some scheduling issues just due to it's being the holidays, obviously. They're either traveling or hosting guests, so it gets a little bit busy during these times, as we all know. And it is currently 12:47 in the morning on Christmas Eve, so I don't expect them to be up this late to record with me. And I'm recording this right after the Saints just absolutely took a whooping from Hammer's Packers. So obviously he's going to be talking trash in the morning, but I'm here sitting in defeat. And I know all the other Saints fans out there are feeling it as well. The depression is real. We were a real football team just over 4 years ago, guys. Drew Brees left, and then it's been a downhill ever since. I broke down the Saints loss in a video that I posted this morning. So if you guys want to check that out right here. And for all the non-Saints fans out there, I'll be breaking down my week 17 picks in this episode. Before we do that, though, we got to, as usual, break down the leaders from our Pick'em group. The winner will be getting a jersey of their choice, like we've said before. So shout out to Mike Cousins, Micro Penix, the leader at 168 wins. Second place, Hit of Ranch, Dylan. Only person really close with a 6-point deficit to him. So maybe over 2 weeks he can catch up. But a lot of these games are going to be runaway games, I feel like. So it might be a tough couple weeks to catch up. Hammer's down at 4th at 160 wins. Ty is in 7th at 156 wins, and I'm at 8th with 155 wins. Anyways, week 17 is a pretty fun week. We got 3 Saturday games. We got the Chargers taking on the Patriots. The Chargers should be able to win this one. Obviously, they just took down the Broncos, who are seemingly a better opponent than the Patriots, but the Patriots did play well against the Bills just a week ago. So the Patriots, Drake May coming in, they got some hope for next season, obviously, but I think the Chargers and this obviously the Chargers offense, Herbert seems to have a lot more confidence this year. Their defense is seemingly playing very, very well this year. And I think that Drake May and the offense for the Patriots don't have enough to overcome that. So I'm going to the Chargers on Saturday in this one. Next, we got the Broncos taking on the Bengals. This is probably one of the more fun games of this slate that is not getting talked about enough, right? The Broncos, Bo Nix, he had 213 passing yards, and 200 yards of those were yards after catch. So it was an absolutely crazy stat, absolute check down fiend in that game against the Chargers just a week ago. But the Broncos obviously playing for the playoffs, whereas the Bengals are also playing to stay alive, but this isn't a win and end type thing. The Broncos, Sean Payton has absolutely turned this team around. The culture's changed. Bo Nix is leading that team to a lot of wins. And last week, obviously, that didn't work out. But I think Bo Nix can do pretty well against this Bengals defense that has sucked week in, week out, except for when they played DTR last week over instead of a Jameis Winston. That being said, Joe Burrow is playing at an MVP level. And if the Bengals get into the playoffs, that discussion becomes a lot larger, but it does require some help. They have a 14% chance to get in the playoffs right now. If the Bengals get in, Joe Burrow has a serious shot of winning the MVP. But Jamar Chase needs to be talked about. T. Higgins needs to be talked about, as well as Chase Brown, who choked me a lot of bets last week. I'll just say that. Not going to get too into it. But I think the Bengals can win this one. I think their offense plays really, really well in this one. And I think their defense keeps the Broncos to maybe 24 points. I'm going to call this game. I'm going to pick the Bengals to win 29. Not going to be sure how they get to that number, but it feels right. 29-24, Bengals beat the Broncos in Cincinnati to keep their playoff hopes alive, but not clinch anything yet. Then to cap off our Saturday slate, we got the Cardinals taking on the Rams. The Cardinals eliminated from the playoffs after Kyler Murray has another average game. James Conner goes off, and Trey McBride is up to 92 catches on the year with zero touchdowns, which is an absolutely insane stat. He was obviously pissed after they lost in overtime against the Panthers, but the Rams coming into this one are on an absolute heater, and I think they can shut down this Cardinals offense. I think they can dominate in the run game, pass game, everywhere across the field because their offense is dominant. Matt Stafford's been playing really well, and I think the Rams continue that and beat the Cardinals in this one. Next, we got the Colts taking on the Giants. Not going to talk about this one too much. The Giants are fully embracing the tank, not beating anyone. I think they'll just purposely lose. And I think Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, absolutely, I'm so sorry to anyone who played Jonathan Taylor last week in the fantasy playoffs. He killed everyone and he scored, more points than he did this week or last week than the previous 5 weeks he had combined. So it was an absolute insane game for Jonathan Taylor. No one really saw it coming against a Titans defense that has been relatively stingy this year, but they just fell apart and Jonathan Taylor killed them on the run. I think they can do that again. I think the Colts beat the Giants here in MetLife. Next, we got the Jets taking on the Bills. The Jets obviously seemingly coming to life. Aaron Rodgers, the Devontae Adams connection is real, right? He says he loves going to work every day and throwing to his best friend. Who could ask for a better situation than that? We obviously saw that with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Look how that turned out. But that being said, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, the connection's happening. The offense looks a little bit better. Obviously, they didn't win last week, but their team is playing with a little bit more life. You like to see that. But I don't see them beating the Bills in this one. The Bills are still fighting for playoff positioning, everything like that. So I think the Bills take down the Jets, and their offense just continues to hum in this one. I think Josh Allen will have a good game. I can see the Bills winning that one. Next, we got the Titans taking on the Jaguars, a game that I really don't want to discuss further than just making the pick, just because both teams are struggling and they both are trying to tank for the draft position, things like that. But I'm going to pick the Jaguars here after what the Titans did against the Colts. I think, obviously, I think Tank Bigsby alone could win the game for the Jaguars. Brian Thomas Jr. is balling out as well, someone that isn't getting enough talk about him. I think Brian Thomas Jr. can win this game for them. I think Tank Bigsby could win this game for them. And they just killed their draft positioning in this one. I think the Jaguars beat the Titans. Next, we got the Raiders taking on the Saints. The Raiders, obviously, I feel bad for the Raiders fans out there, right? Because you think they're going into the game last week thinking we're tanking. We're obviously tanking against the Jaguars. We'll get a better pick than them, and they're on our own. And they go in, and then they come back and win. Like they go in, and Brock Bowers has a huge game. Obviously deserved. He's been doing that all year. Aiden O'Connell started finally giving him the ball in the late half of that game. But the Raiders should not have wanted to win that game, right? Like we think about it. It cost them a number one pick. They've fallen all the way to 6. Now you can't pick a quarterback, which is what killed you last draft. Come this time around, and you just really don't have any positives going for you. You're not gaining anything by winning that game, except for losing your draft pick. That's all that happens. The Saints, on the other hand, are at the 10th pick with a 5-win record, which is absolutely insane to think about. It's the lowest a 5-win team has picked in a long time in the NFL. And they have no positives going for them, right? As a Saints fan, it's really depressing. I'm sitting here just like, what are we going to do the next few years? You have to get a good coach. You have to turn the culture around. Hopefully find a quarterback if Spencer Rattler isn't the guy, which it doesn't really seem like he is, but you can't judge him without any weapons. So hopefully the Saints turn it around. And I think they'll win this game simply because the Raiders are really, really bad. And I think the Saints are really, really bad, but I think they're at least it's a home game for them. I think whoever is the home team would win this one. So I'm going to pick the Saints to beat the Raiders, even though it'd be really nice if the Raiders beat the Saints, gave us a little bit of a higher pick if they won one more game this year. But I just want the Saints to look competent and lose out. That's really my goal. But I'll pick the Saints here in this one, even though I could see Brock Bowers possibly going off in this one. So for all your fantasy owners out there in the championship, start Brock Bowers. He's going to have a good game against the Saints. I think all tight ends are Saints killers. So I'll pick the Saints here in this one, but the Raiders do have a good shot at winning. They both suck. Who knows? Next, we got the Panthers taking on the Buccaneers. The Panthers looking to kill the Buccaneers' playoff hopes with the Falcons obviously being tied with them and having the tiebreaker over them. The Buccaneers, though, man, the running offense looks really good, and Baker Mayfield looks really solid. But last week against the Cowboys, they somehow lost that game. And you're sitting there like, the Cowboys are going to turn around. Or not the Cowboys. The Buccaneers are going to turn it around. They're going to turn around at some point in this game. They'll take the lead, take control. They just never did. And it seemed like the Cowboys were trying to hand them the ball and hand them the game. Because every 2 seconds, you see the Cowboys run, pass, run, pass. Conservative game. And they still somehow won. It was the most undeserved win I've ever seen. And it was amazing. Because as a Saints fan, I don't want the Bucs to win. So it was amazing as a Saints fan, but for all the Bucs fans out there, man, I would have been really pissed with that team. But the Panthers on the other side, man, they got a lot to live up to right now. They got a lot to look up to, because Bryce Young's playing really, really well. They're winning games, and you still have a low draft pick. but you have hope. You got Adam Thielen that's really playing well for you for Bryce Young. And you got Chuba Hubbard playing really, really well. You got Jalen Coker playing really, really well. You have a lot of pieces to look forward to in the few years coming. That being said, I think the Buccaneers beat the Panthers in this one again. But the Panthers, if they get a nice little revenge game for a few years past, I wouldn't be too upset. But I'm going to pick the Bucs here in this one. Next, we got the Cowboys taking on the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles, man, they looked really good the last few weeks, and then they lose to the Commanders without Jalen Hurts. And I think that Jalen Hurts injury obviously hurts them. Kenny Pickett is not Jalen Hurts by any means, shape or form. But they still scored 33 points. They had 5 turnovers. And that's kind of that discussion is Nick Sirianni the head coach that can run this team in the future? That's the discussion that needs to be had with that game, because it wasn't the offense that let you down. It wasn't the defense that let you down. So what the hell did? Right? Obviously, Devontae Smith had a really bad drop late in the game that could have clinched them the win. But they lost that game in a game where they all performed relatively well. So it was just a tough loss for them. The Commies, a great win for them. On the other side, the Cowboys getting another huge win for them. They're not going in the playoffs. They're just hurting their draft stock. But that's true Cowboys fashion, right? Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy, trying to keep their jobs alive, trying to keep the positive vibes going into Dallas, but it's not going to work too long. The Eagles are going to blow out the Cowboys in this one. I think the Eagles run down their throats. Saquon Barkley has another game. Possibly squeaks his way into that MVP conversation if he has a really true, huge game, which could happen against this Cowboys run defense. Next, we got the Dolphins taking on the Browns. The Browns struggling with DTR offense last week. Jameis Winston coming into this one with DTR seeming to be hurt. And the Dolphins, they are playing better, right? They are. I don't see them. They're not a playoff team. Tua's playing a little bit better. The offense is playing a little bit better. And I think they can beat the Browns here in this one, but that's all I can really say for them. I think they need to recruit really hard next year to try to be a playoff team, AFC wildcard team, because I don't see them passing the Bills in their division. But I think they can beat the Browns here and just have like something to look forward to if they keep winning the rest of the season with 2 games left. Next, we got the Packers taking on the Vikings. The Vikings, man, Sam Darnold does it again, right? I mean, you have Justin Jefferson, so you have a target that you can basically throw to whenever, and he'll come down with the ball. But he has looked extremely good. He's making good throws, good reads, and tight and really important game moments. On the other side, you got the Packers who are doing the same thing. Jordan Love balling out. Josh Jacobs absolutely killing every single team he plays, scoring touchdowns, I believe, in 8 straight games now, 6 straight games, something like that, rushing touchdowns. Aaron Jones has been scoring pretty well. Obviously didn't last week, killed me in bets as well. But the Vikings defense, this game, which defense plays better? That's the deciding factor. That being said, the Packers just killed my Saints 33-0. And I really want to cheer against them, but I think the Packers can beat the Vikings in this one. And that will shore up the number 1 seed for the Lions and also not shore it up, but give them a lot less. Actually, no, yeah, it would shore it up. And I think the Lions would clinch if they win and the Eagles lose, which would be awesome because then that would open up the possibility that the Eagles could just screw over the Giants and intentionally lose that game, giving the Giants a higher pick in the draft, which would be awesome, something to look forward to in week 18. But I think the Packers beat the Vikings in this one. Their defense is playing really well. I think they held out Jair this past game just to try to keep him healthy for the Vikings game. So I think that the Packers win and beat the Vikings. Next, we got the Foul Clowns taking on the Commanders. And the Foul Clowns, obviously, Michael Penix beats the Giants, looks pretty solid, should have had a touchdown, or at least shouldn't have had an interception because he threw the ball to Kyle Pitts, rookie mistake, thinking Kyle Pitts can catch. Michael Penix looked really, really damn good. Looked a lot better than Kirk Cousins did, at least. And as a guy who loved Michael Penix going into the draft, that kills me. It kills me on the inside because I really love the guy, but I can't cheer him on. I need the Commies to absolutely destroy the Foul Clowns' dreams, hopes, dreams, everything. Kick them out the window. Commies by 100. Jayden Daniels solidifying his Rookie of the Year pick or Rookie of the Year spot with this one. Killing the Foul Clowns and setting FedEx Field on fire. I know it's not called that anymore, but I'm going to keep calling it that. FedEx Field on fire. The fans are going to be going crazy, and the Commies will make the playoffs this year. And I think they beat the Foul Clowns. Next, we got Monday Night Football. We got the Lions taking on the 49ers. a game that would have been better maybe 5 weeks ago if the 49ers could have stayed healthy. Like if you said this was a week 5-10 matchup, I'd be like, okay, this looks good. But now the 49ers completely depleted with injuries. This is not a good matchup. The Lions, obviously, the defensive side of the ball, depleted with injuries, but the 49ers offense just hasn't been a good product, right? Even their defense is a little bit banged up. The Lions, just their defense. So their offense still looked absolutely amazing against the Bears last week. And obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs, number one running back, bet him a touchdown every single week in, week out. He's going to score. I think that's basically a given at this point in time. When you draw up a fake fumble to beat your rival, it's the most disrespectful thing you can do. The Lions did it, and I think they beat the 49ers here in this one as well. Anyways, that'll do it for a week 17 slate. If you guys got any questions, any comments, leave them down below. I want to hear what you guys think about the Chiefs, Steelers games, the Broncos, Bengals games, as well as the Packers, Vikings games, because I think those are my 3 biggest games of the week, because I think they're the most fun, and they got the most going for them, and as well as playoff implications in general. And I want to hear your takes. If the Eagles have nothing to go for in the number 1 seed, do they go into week 18 and intentionally tank to kill the Giants' hopes at Shedeur Sanders or a top quarterback in the draft? Because that would be the most amazing thing I would ever see in the NFL, like in my life. So I want to hear what you guys think. Is that possible? What you guys think about it? Anyways, that'll do it for a week 17 slate. You can check us out on anywhere you get your podcasts at Jenks Island, as well as all social medias at Jenks Island. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.